Let's Perfect. Welcome everyone. We are going to be going over some of the recommended bylaw amendments that were submitted by the International Board this year. Thank you all for coming. The real focus of today is going to be answering some outlying questions on the dues amendment, on all of the amendments, and really focus on the areas of concern of the members. So before we get started, some things to keep in mind. These bylaw amendments have already been submitted. So more than just a discussion, this is going to be a Q&A session for members to learn about the bylaw amendments, at least the proposals that have been submitted. And we will be going through the questions that have already been submitted. There will also be a chance for you to submit questions. Katie's going to drop the link in the chat for you to submit questions to ask. Also, feel free to message us with questions. Yeah, we'll also have a few documents that'll help out with the session. So as we will get started. So first off, we're just going to do a quick introduction, overview of the amendments, and then we'll go through some of our pre-submitted questions, allow time to speak after that, and then answer any other questions and that get submitted, and we'll wrap it up. So a few things, ground rules as we're speaking. Make sure we're being respectful and actively listening, speaking from our own experiences and refraining from personal attacks. And important for tonight, every member will have 2 minutes to speak until everyone has been given the chance to speak. We want to make sure that we're being equitable with the time, since we only have an hour tonight. And if your question has been answered and you have a follow-up, feel free to send it in the chat or feel free to reach out to us afterwards in the Q&A feature, not the chat, sorry. So first off, we are going to go through the wording of the First Amendment, which is simplifying the chartering of multi-school clubs. So I'm going to go ahead and share the actual wording of the amendment on my screen right now. So I'll walk through this amendment real quick. Wrong share, sorry. There it is. So first thing is a multi-school club has been defined in the bylaws already, as well as e-clubs have also been defined. Basically, what we're doing with this is to simplify the chartering between multi-school clubs and e-clubs, basically merging all of these terms into one term. So it includes non-traditional e-clubs all into a singular category. And we had several questions for this, including like what would it look like for a single club to charter an e-club? And the answer to that one is it wouldn't look any different from chartering a normal club. These are just the rules for chartering a multi-school club. Again, nothing is really changing. It's not really going to impact how we function. The only thing that we codified in the bylaws with this amendment that's a little different is the number of members that are required to be in good standing. And that's just based on the number of members that are part of an e-club. So for example, if the number of members exceeds 5,000 members from the combined clubs, then that means that you need 15 members, just like with a normal club. So really not going to change anything functionally. We're just simplifying what the wording looks like for the bylaws. So again, we shared this ahead of time, so I'm not going to spend too much time reading through the exact wording, but we'll move on. We'll go back to the presentation. So next thing is going to be the removal of outdated regions. So the reason for that, and I'm not going to go through the wording for this, the only reason for that is that regions really don't serve a function right now. It's antiquated wording that was back a few years ago when we had subregions and regions, which is how we defined how trustee roles were given out. But even then, regions didn't really have a purpose. So we're just removing that wording from the bylaws because it's something that we really don't use. So pretty straightforward amendment right there. Next thing, talking about provisional status. So this one, provisional status, again, something that was passed several years ago at international convention. We've been rolling it out throughout this year. Um, it's been in the bylaws for several years, but this is the first year that we've been acting on it and rolling it out for real. So as we've been rolling it out, we've kind of been ironing out the kinks and making it, seeing what needs to be improved with it. So the amendment, again, I'll share my screen from the actual wording of the amendment. The amendment is based on what we've seen this year. So the way that it'll change is instead of having 5 years before clubs go into provision, before districts go into provisional status, they will need to be not in good standing for 3 years to automatically be designated as a provisional district. Um, Another change to this is that provisional districts, once they meet the requirement, will automatically be designated back as a district. The way this looks different from what it is right now is right now it's based on the judgment of the board. So we're taking out the subjectivity of judgment of the board and making it so once you earn 5 clubs in good standing, you're automatically moved back up. And something that we're looking into for this is also considering a policy code change um, to allow for districts to be moved back down if they don't um, meet that requirement in the future. But for now, we're just focusing on the bylaw. Um, all of this is saying 3 years instead of 5 years. And the reasoning for that is because most college students won't be there for 5 years. And with the addition of being in provisional status for 2 years, having the status of a district only being affected every 7 years, you're really not going to see the impact. Even with the rollover of multiple years of college students. So we just wanted to make sure that we're having uh, the most efficient way of using this, of using provisional status and making sure that it has the best impact on our districts. Um, so next, we're going to move back into the presentation. And I apologize for the hopping back and forth. Hard to fit all the wording onto the slides. Next, we're going to talk about the international dues increase. Um, so the reasoning for this, and we have been speaking about this a lot, but is adjusting the international dues. There's a number of reasons that we need to do this. The main reason is that we are in a deficit right now. We rely on Kiwanis International to provide us with a subsidy. And in addition to that subsidy, we're not meeting the necessary funding that we need to run our organization. And there's a number of reasons for this, including a membership decline over the last several years, higher inflation, reduction. So the goal of this is to reduce the deficit, provide additional member benefits, and really improve the organization. But again, like that deficit makes it so we're not functional as an organization without even additional support to that Kiwanis subsidy. So um, the way that this dues proposal is going to work, you can see the flow chart here. We're proposing an $8 increase next year, followed by a $4 increase, followed by another $8 increase. The reason for the $4 increase in the middle year is because we'll also be paying additional insurance fees to Kiwanis International that we hadn't been charged in the past. So the $4 is to cover that fee. And then the $8 the first and third year is to help offset that deficit and provide additional member benefits. Um, so the total increase would be over 3 years, which after hearing feedback from governors and feedback from our members, we realized that over 3 years is better for the membership, as we'll have more time to communicate it, and subtle and slowly raise the dues rather than doing it all at once. Um, and then you'll see the flow chart below shows that um, that as we increase in membership, the increase in dues would not go up as much the preceding years. Um, so As we reach 7,500 members, you can see what would happen in the second and third years. And as we reach 9,000 members, what would happen in the second and third years as well. Um, and you can see after running the numbers on a couple of these dues increases, we would cover our deficit, and in a couple of these scenarios we would actually be in the positive from our deficit, still relying on the Kiwanis subsidy. But the big benefit of that is we're really looking to improve the member experience. So as we're looking to increase our dues, we want to do good things for the members with it, including improving communication, adding additional potential scholarships and internships, really making sure that we're focusing on that professional development and the communication within the organization. So that was just a quick run through of some of the amendments. So now we're going to open it up to the folks that have submitted new questions. We're going to answer a few of those questions and then give some time to speak. So I'm going to stop sharing my screen so we can all see each other again. Um, but first off, we're going to go into the Q&A, read a few of them. So as a reminder, before we start this, there is a Q&A feature for tonight. So um, make sure that you're using that to submit your questions. And then if you submit it on the form, you'll be given the 2 minutes to speak. Um, so you can go ahead and submit questions, submit to speak on that form if you're interested. Um, Yeah, so we'll go ahead and get started with some of the questions that have been submitted. So, um, one of the questions that we got a couple times beforehand, and we actually got in the chat tonight as well, is what would the benefits look like when we get the dues increase, or as we're looking for the dues increase? And we have a number of resources that are talking specifically to what that would look like. Um, and they're on the Circle K International website right now. Um, Katie dropped some resources in the chat for the website for what exactly those would look like. But we're looking into enhanced communication platforms, something like a texting service or some sort of app that would help with communication for international, as well as, again, like I mentioned, the potential for internships with Kiwanis and additional scholarship opportunities for members. Um, yeah, we're looking into a lot of different things based on the feedback that we've received from governors at the Governor Administrator Training Conference and the feedback that we've gotten from members through the membership survey last year. So a number of different things that we're looking into based on what ends up happening with our dues increase and what we're able to afford next year. So looking at another question in the chat, is someone submitted, if e-clubs are still singular options, then why has it been removed? Um, and the big thing here is just simplifying the wording on the within the bylaws. There's still going to be an option to be singular, but within the wording of the multi-club charter, it makes a little more sense to simplify that wording and make it a little easier to understand, especially for new clubs that are trying to charter. Um, really make that wording a lot easier to understand, especially as folks are trying to enter our organization. And then another thing is what financial status would CKI have with membership staying the same but increasing dues? And again, I'm going to we have a lot of good resources on the website at this point. So I would refer you to the international website. The links that Katie has posted or that Katie sent out, there's a lot of good resources. Um, Showing exactly that flow chart that we just showed really shows like what it would look like, and exactly the dollar breakdown is in on the website when you're looking at the dues adjustment resources. Um, But yeah, it's there's a lot available to see those kinds of projections. But right now, the big thing is even if we increase the dues, we're still going to have to focus on membership. But as the membership numbers increase, then we have it within our bylaw proposals that the amount of increase would not be as high each year. And then,
Also, sorry,
go ahead,
Zach,
dude.
but just to add on to what we were talking about with singular e-club, so there's nothing within the details for how to charter a CKI club that says you have to meet in person. So kind of like condensing the multi-school clubs is really just for simplifying those clubs that have multi-schools. But if you're looking to charter a singular e-club, it's not really an e-club, it's just a normal club that meets virtually. So all of the guidelines are the same as they were. There's nothing that's changing there. The multi-school club simplification is simply for those clubs that have different schools within them. So nothing is changing if you want to still charter a singular e-club.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Gonna open up some of the other questions. Um, So another one was about provisional status, and the current policy code states that districts in provisional status only have 2 years before they're disbanded. Will that be extended? And the answer to that is no. It will not be extended. They will still have 2 years within provisional status, before they move down to undistricted status. Um, and really, the reasoning behind provisional status is to ensure that everyone within a CKI district has a positive experience. Districts that have less than 5 clubs are not going to have the same type of opportunities as districts that don't have as many clubs. Um, we really want to make sure that all of our districts are in what we consider good standing because it improves the member experience and it really makes sure that districts are pushing to get back into good standing and at least are pushing for membership growth because the more members we have, the more members that folks have to interact with, the better the experience is for members. And it really, when you get down to 2 or 3 clubs, the experience with the district and the experience isn't quite the same. So we want members to focus on building up their clubs and eventually building up their districts. So provisional status is still going to be at that 2 years. So it would be 3 years of not being in good standing, followed by 2 years of provisional status. So overall, we're moving from 7 years to go into undistricted status to 5 years to go into undistricted status if you don't meet the good standing rules. And that would be what is proposed right now. And then someone, we were asked a few times what the situation would look like for CKI if a dues amendment was not passed this year. And a big part of that is we are not financially stable as an organization as we stand right now, which is the reason that we need to pass a dues amendment. Excuse me. Um, So, as we look to the future, if a dues amendment does not pass, it's really difficult to predict what would happen. Um, but I can pull up a chart, one of the charts in a minute to show exactly what it looks like. But as we're standing right now, um, the deficit is not sustainable for the future. And the way our membership is growing, or the way our membership has declined, is not sustainable for the future. So really, the only options are to grow by a large number as well as increase the dues. Um, so we need to focus on both of these things, or else we don't know what's going to happen with the future of our organization, honestly. Um, we need to show, especially as we're receiving hundreds of thousands of dollars from Kiwanis International in the form of a subsidy and in the form of covering our deficit, we need to show them that we're able to take action to sustain our organization through the future. Um, we're not sure what's going to happen in the future if this doesn't pass, so we really need to take action as members of our organization and make sure that our future is still still sustainable and still something that we're able to um, still something that we're able to control because if we don't pass this, we don't really know what's going to happen, and we're still reliant on Kiwanis support to even be functional as an organization. We still will be relying on Kiwanis, but we need to be able to cover that deficit and make ourselves more financially stable and more financially independent.
And just to add on to that, kind of like Zach said, without passing a dues increase, we don't know for sure that our organization will continue to exist. And that's the simple wording of it. So it's really difficult and none of this is easy, but at least on the international board, from the international board perspective, we really want to make sure that CKI continues to exist and continues to make really big impacts. And that's really why we're pushing for this so that more students can have the same opportunities that we've gotten and the same experiences and the same friendships, and continue to have access to that.
Yeah, and just to continue on that, thank you, Katie. Um, as we're thinking about the future and the fact that our organization could not exist if we don't meet these thresholds for covering the deficit, in addition to that, like we need to show that we are able to take action because the Kiwanis subsidy right now that's covering us and allowing us to continue operating is not going to look the same in the future, especially if we're not able to take action as an organization. Um, they always consider like Kiwanis, like any other organization, has to consider what they're putting their money towards. So if they're looking at us and not seeing us take action as an organization, us take action to secure our own future, then what would motivate them to invest in our future in the moving forward? And I'm going to share the graphic real quick just to look at this. And just looking at this deficit, just making sure, um, yeah, y'all should be able to see that. Um, looking at the
Scroll.
deficit,
There you go.
this is the dues breakdown right now, the current CKI budget, what it looks like. And to to provide some context for this, that deficit of $45,000 is actually much, much higher than that. This is just what was budgeted for the year. We were budgeted to with a projection of 8,500 members, um, and we did not reach that membership threshold this year. That was the goal for the year, and we're sitting at just under 6,000 members. I think it's like 5,920 as of last week. So we are far, far from that deficit of $45,000. We're at a much higher deficit. That is, I don't know the exact number on the deficit that we're sitting at right now, because it keeps getting updated every day. But looking at that, like that's in addition to this Kiwanis subsidy right here of $191,000. So they're providing a lot of support for us, and a lot of support that they weren't intending on providing in terms of that deficit. So a lot of money that we're receiving, and if we really don't show that we're able to take action, uh, yeah, it's not the best situation. So that's kind of the reasoning behind why we propose this dues increase. Um, we understand like it's not always the most fun thing to pass something like a dues increase. It's not like we went into the year looking to pass a dues increase just for fun. It really is a good reasoning behind it, and it's really something that we need as an organization. And we also got some questions. I'll leave this up for now so y'all can keep taking a look at it. Um, Another thing is we have not passed a dues increase. We had a dues adjustment a few years ago where we moved from club fees to per member fees in accordance with Kiwanis bylaws. But for over half of our clubs, that ended up in a reduction in dues. It did end up as increasing dues for about 15% of clubs. Um, but for the most part, it ended up being a dues reduction. And right now, as it stands, we have the same per member dues as we did in the middle of the 1990s. Um, and that is kind of crazy considering inflation over the last 30 years. And we really haven't seen any major increases in the dues. So we're going to move on from those questions.
Zach, can I add one thing really quick?
Yeah, go for it,
I just
Taylor.
want to say that, like, to your point, inflation, and I know that this is something that a lot of us really don't want to do, but we have to understand that this is something that we need to do at the end of the day because um, we want to sustain the future of CKI. I know we're all here because we care about CKI. And so at the end of the day, just knowing that this is something we need to do, even if we don't want to do it. So at the end of the day, just really focusing on passing this dues increase and increasing membership.
Yeah, thank you, Taylor. Um, yeah, so I'll stop sharing my screen there. Y'all have the link to that graphic, and it is on the Circle K International website. Um, that as well as a couple other graphics on the dues adjustment. Um, so you have access to that if you want to take a more in detail look at it. Um, Next thing, we got some questions about like when exactly would the dues benefits be released? And that's something that we're working on into the next year. Again, like it's all dependent on what we're able to pass as a dues increase this year, and it's all dependent on what our membership numbers look like. We won't be able to know what we're able to do until our budget is passed. So, while I would love to give an answer of we'll be able to do exactly this, this, and this, we won't know until our budget is finalized, and we're working on exactly what that'll look like.
Someone also had a question about insurance, and Michelle Sudi Campbell is going to answer that one for us.
Hi, so there was a question about the timing and when the insurance bill or fees may be due to Kiwanis International. That will all shake out during the annual budgeting process, which is going to be later this year due to the fact that all three organizations are bringing dues increases to the House of Delegates. But I imagine from everything that I have heard through today that we can expect a bill for up to $5 per member to help offset the cost of insurance that Kiwanis now pays 100% for CKI and Key Club. And that we can expect that bill in the 24-25 program year, depending upon the decisions that are made at the Kiwanis International Board of Trustees table.
Thanks, Michelle. Uh,
Also,
Go ahead.
sorry, Zach, I just
Yeah,
wanted to
go ahead.
emphasize, especially for member benefits, if y'all have ideas for things that you're looking for member benefits, please reach out to us with those because we as a board are still making recommendations. And unfortunately, our board, our time as a board will end after convention. So we'll be encouraging the new board to continue collecting recommendations as well. So if you have things that you really want to get out of your CKI membership, please share those with us because that will really help kind of determine what those member benefits will look like at the end of the day.
Yeah, for sure. We love to hear the feedback um, from all of you, and it really helps like what we're deciding we want to do with improving member experience, with looking to add improved benefits. And we got another question. If dues are increased and membership massively declines, wouldn't that be counterproductive? Um, and yes, that definitely would be counterproductive. But the big thing is, again, like we need to see an increase in membership and an increase in dues um, to meet the deficit numbers um, that we're currently facing. And it's going to be a big responsibility of the members within the organization over the next few years to make sure that we're seeing membership growth. Um, we're going to do all we can, and we've been doing all we could this year to help with membership growth in the districts. But we really are relying on districts and individual clubs to do the groundwork and really make sure that we're increasing in membership. Um, as we're looking to pass these, membership growth is honestly like the best way that we're going to improve our financial standing, improve the experience in the organization. Um, Ultimately, if we hit enough members, like that kind of solves all our problems. Um, and that's a good way to look at it is like the more we grow, the more we're able to offer our members, the better experience it is. Um, but yeah, a good point because doing this dues increase isn't going to mean anything if we don't put in the work to make sure that we're adding members and really focusing on membership growth throughout the next several years. And then looking at some other questions, um, let's see. I'm just looking what we haven't answered already. Let's see. Sorry. We got a few repeats in here. Um, we had some questions out of the budget as well. What it looks like, what the management fee exactly goes to. Um, One of these was it goes to all services that we pay for with Kiwanis International. It includes maintenance, IT, in-house accounting, the communications department, design, maintenance of the website, all of these sorts of things that we have as inherent parts of our organization. We have to pay to keep these things running. We have to pay to help with the staffing costs um, of the organization. And ultimately, like nothing is free. So we have to pay for things like having the Kiwanis International headquarters, help having a space in the Kiwanis International headquarters, space, cleaning, building maintenance, all those sorts of things, copies, IT, phones, internet, all those sorts of things, ultimately have a cost. So they're of our parts of our organization, the shared services, um, that really need to be paid for and have a big impact on our organization. Um, we also, going off of another question, we also have to play it for general legal support for our in-house counsel, and those legal fees are going to be changing. Like we mentioned, they will be increased. So we have to pay our share of that increase to help offset the cost that Kiwanis is already paying for us. Um, yeah, looking at the next question. Um, For multi-school chartering, the language says none of the associated educational institutions currently have a chartered CKI. Oh, it looks like Katie just answered that
Sorry, I
one.
just answered that question. It applies to individual campuses. So for example, each of the different Ohio State campuses has their own club. So if you go to a school that doesn't, if you go to Ohio State, but not an Ohio State that has a club, then that would apply. So also just to add on to the question about so someone asked a question about like what was the reason for the date being February 1st for the amount of trustees for the year. So that has a lot of different reasons behind it. We want to be considerate to those who are running for endorsement at their district conventions. It also is the date where clubs go inactive due to non-payment. And we had 94% of our membership this year by that date. So it's a really, really good predictor of the amount of membership that we're having in that year. And there's, like I said, all of those reasons are kind of combined as to why we decided on that date.
Awesome. Thanks, Katie. Um, Next thing is looking at what resources will be provided for district leaders to help with the dues increase and to help with recruitment as we're looking to the next year. Um, and The first answer to that is there are a ton of resources, especially when focusing on the recruitment aspect of it, that dues paid members and dues paid clubs have access to on the website. Um, and this includes resources to help with fundraisers, to help with district-wide fundraisers as well, how to outreach to Kiwanis, how to outreach to outside organizations, and also a ton of tabling resources to help with fall recruitment on campuses. And additionally, it'll be the responsibility of the incoming board. We will be working with the incoming board to help provide those resources as we move into the fall. But exactly what those might look like, if you have specific requests, we're happy to help with those kinds of resources. And we encourage you to reach out if you have any specific things that you're looking for as you're talking with your members, talking with your clubs about this dues increase. Um, and an important aspect here as well, is that we currently charge much lower than a lot of other university and college level clubs for our annual dues. So this is something that can be a selling point in terms of like selling it to members as like you would pay X amount of money to go join this organization. So it really does again fall to the club leadership, the district leadership to sell exactly why CKI is worth it as an organization. And we as an international level, can only go so far. We can provide the resources. We can provide the reasons to join CKI. We can provide those professional development opportunities and really contribute to what makes CKI CKI. But it's up to the districts, it's up to club leadership to be working on those recruitment strategies. Because those resources, we have so many resources that we get questions about and that are available on the website that no one takes advantage of, or very few people do take advantage of. So, to shorten that answer, like there's a ton existing and we're working on more. Um, but it is going to be a lot of hard work in this next year to really show why CKI is worth it and provide value to our members as we're looking to make this dues increase happen, as we're looking to make the future of our organization better and make it so members want to join our organization and members want to pay that fee. Um,
Sorry, can I say one thing real fast?
yeah, go for it, Nancy.
I will say I highly recommend like taking this time to look through the website. There are a lot of things that can increase a member's experience, which will then justify like why they're paying a little bit more. There are a lot of great resources on there, so I highly suggest using the things that we have on there and kind of making sure that members do have that experience that kind of matches, you know, the amount that they're paying.
Yeah, and also like there can be a lot, maybe overwhelming, but like we're all here to support you. And so if you ever have any questions about the resources on the website, like always come to us. And I, like Nancy said, like highly recommend you just take the time out of your day one day to just go through and like see what resources are out there for your disposal.
Yeah, and again, we have a bunch of international trustees on this call. So feel free to reach out to any of us. Feel free to reach out to Katie and myself, to staff as well. We're happy to answer any questions that you have about the resources, or if you're looking for something specifically, there's a good chance that it is there on the website already. And if you're not seeing it on the website, we are also happy to help create those resources. Um, and seeing as we have about 15 minutes left, and we've answered all of the Q&A answer or all of the Q&A questions in the chat, we are going to move on to the folks that have submitted to speak, the folks that we are that signed up to speak. I'm going to move to that list real quick. Let me just pull that up. I think Katie, you have that pulled up right now?
Yep, so just for some reminders about the ground rules, so everyone who would like to speak will be given 2 minutes. So I'll raise my Zoom hand when you have 1 minute left, and then I'll interrupt you when your time is up. And again, if you have any follow-up questions, feel free to put them in the Q&A box, and that's just so that we can make sure to answer everyone's questions. So Jose, you're up first. I'll start the timer whenever you start talking.
Perfect. I want to say that while I appreciate this call, I think a limit of 2 minutes is something that doesn't do a service to a lot of members because we're not actually able to communicate our issues with what's been going on, and it leaves for a few members to be able to discuss this in Denver. So I think that's an issue that we need to look at. We need to have honest communications of what needs to be fixed, but a lot of these amendments have issues. I mean, to start off with the first one, we're talking about the trustee reduction. In February 1st, we had less than 5,000 members, and we usually have less than 5,000 members. So we're going to be stuck in a 3 trustee loop, which creates issues when we're going to go from 8 trustees to 3, meaning those 3 people are going to have more work, and it's going to put more stress on them. And that's not fair to them, and that's not fair to the organization when we're hitting our 5,000. We're also putting districts into provisional status and making this effective immediately after ICON when we don't have resources to help them, and putting them in a 2-year deadline that the president himself said isn't going to change. So those clubs are now going to have to face issues of 2 years or you're done. We're talking about the fact that we're making it easier for charting, but we're removing the specific line of e-charting, which makes it more of a question than anything else, and brings into issues some of the legalities of the wording of what we're going into, which is a cause for concern when we get into the new service year. We also have the dues amendment. I understand we have a financial issue, but myself, and I speak for myself, but a lot of govs sentimented this, have issues with the fact that it is so high. We are fearful that even if we do our best, which we intend to do, we are going to see a reduction that should not happen. A lesser dues amount could potentially help us get what both parties want. Unless there's serious changes to these amendments, I don't know how they could be put forward. And honestly, that's a serious impact that can hurt our organization for the future. I know my 2 minutes is almost up, so I would just say I encourage everyone to really look into it and recognize the issues with these amendments as they currently are.
Awesome. Thank you, Jose, for your points. And I also would encourage any of you to speak today, to voice your opinions, and also to set up calls with anyone on the iBoard if you'd also like to voice your opinions. Every single one of the trustees, Zach and I, are completely open for you to have conversations with. So anytime you want to talk to us, if it's a Zoom call or a phone call, please just reach out and we're happy to meet with you at any time to talk through any of these amendments. So the next person up we have on the list is Don Rhodes.
You guys hear me? I'm sorry.
We can
Just
hear you
make sure.
now, so I'll just start your timer whenever you start talking.
Okay, thank you. My question was mainly about the club dues because I'm from Miles College, and so like we're like the only somewhat active HBCU that Circle K has had in a while. Because I know that there's another one at Howard. I know that there was a club at Howard University, and I know that they've been inactive for a while. But my club, with these international dues being raised, my club will get hurt a lot because even we have students. I have members to this day that still sit and complain about just paying 32. And if I go back and tell them that now international dues is now $32 itself, they're gonna be looking at me crazy like we can't pay this. We're not gonna pay this. And so it really hurts me because I love this organization just as much as I love another organization that I'm a part of. So I can't, I try my best to say, hey, this is the issue. This is what they told me, and this is what I'm doing to bring it to y'all. So if it's possible to either have that dude to be at 5 to instead of 8 straight off the bat, that would be fine with my club. But that's just mainly me about on the dues. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for bringing up those concerns. I know um, a lot of clubs have had success in the last few years, especially working with their Kiwanis clubs and setting up fundraisers to really offset the cost of those dues. Um, I know it can definitely be a struggle to pay those by yourself, but there are a lot of resources out there to help get that done. A lot of organizations that you can reach out to help with that, and a lot of different ways that you can work to fundraise and work to raise that money to help your members out as well. It's something that a lot of clubs have done in the past, and I'm sure we have a lot of experience with that. So if you specifically need help with your club, we're happy to help brainstorm some ideas, or help to provide some materials that would help with that. Um, and just to go back to Jose's statement, I just wanted to correct an inaccuracy. Jose said that as of April 1st, we're usually under 5,000 members. But as of the last 3 years, we were over 5,000 members. We have never been under 5,000 members as of April 1st, going back to 2018. So just wanted to correct that statement there.
That's not what I said, and I know there's what's going on. I said February 1st, we're under 5,000. April 1st, we're usually above. That's why I said we should move the deadline. I just want to, if I misstated, I'm sorry, but I wanted to correct that. I wasn't misspeaking.
Okay, thank you. Um, Go ahead, Pri.
And sorry, if I may interject here, I just want to say that, I know there are some new members on this call as well who haven't been part of these amendment discussions, but all of these amendments are some form of a compromise from the International Board. Understanding that if you go back and actually run the numbers, the true increase we need is in a $24 increase, which is doubling of dues, to cover our deficit. So, while I understand the point that no one really wants a large increase in dues, we as a board have tried to find a sweet spot in the middle with an 848 increase, with potential, I guess reductions in those increases in years 2 and years 3. And take a second example, with the kind of the trustee amount, tying that to membership. Originally, we had that at December 1st, and we agree that December 1st membership is not very representative of our organization. April 1st is the other extreme because that doesn't give considerate time for people running for international office to have that foresight going into their district conventions. And the deadline for candidate literature for candidates running for international office is somewhere in early April. I believe this year it was April 10th. If not, it was very close. Giving them 10 days to know how many positions there are for them to run is not very considerate. So that February 1st date, again, it may not be perfect, but it is some form of a compromise. And we can go into every amendment. Like I said, the board has talked for hours and has come to a middle ground with these amendments. They are not perfect. They will have their problems, but we would also appreciate if the membership could see that going to the other extreme is also not the solution and to kind of seek a middle ground with us.
Also, I would like to add with the dues increase and also support, like you were talking about, Dawn. I know personally, my club, I have never actually paid personal dues to the club because we fundraise so much throughout the year. What we do is we go by the method of fundraising and also reaching out to Kiwanis support. So we reach out to them and ask for 1/3 to half of our dues, and then we fundraise for the rest. So we do a variety of different things, from doing bake sales on our university's campus. We've also designed and sold t-shirts. We've worked the concession stands at our school games before to raise money. We've sold different food items on the lawns during first weeks back to classes, done raffles, different raffle baskets, different stuff like that. That has really made it very successful, and also been able to sustain a high group number of people for multiple years, and has also been able to help us grow even with that. And then going into the next year, my club has talked about even more ways and also starting that fundraising earlier. So instead of starting when school first goes back, they're starting fundraising now to help anticipate an increase to still be able to cover it. So they're fundraising and doing different things throughout the summer with doing online popcorn selling fundraisers and starting to go and do different things throughout the summer to help build that up to help with these dues increase. We know that it is a hard thing to think about and a hard time, but with it, like Pri said, there has been a lot of consideration behind everything with it. All of us trustees, Katie, Zach, and have all sat down and talked a lot in detail about all of these to try to really come up with what we see as best to help further this organization, because the main thing we need to think about here is the future.
Yeah, thank you all. Those were great points. And I'm gonna add, we just had another question in the chat that I'm gonna add real quick, and then we had one more person that signed up to speak. So I'll give them the opportunity to speak in a moment. But another thing that was asked, just a quick question, was what is being done to translate our website to other languages and provide those resources to international clubs? And the answer to that is that's something that we're also looking into, but unfortunately, it's not a free service to get our documents translated to other languages. So that's something that we're also considering as we're looking to provide additional member benefits. Um, so not a simple answer to that one. The cost of an official translation service can be quite high. So as we're looking to improve our um, international relations of our organization and the international reach of our organization. Um, the issue that we run into is translating like the official documents and resources because that has to be done by an official service. Obviously, like we can use Google Translate for quick communication, emails, things like that. But when it comes to official documents, um, right now with our current budget, we did look into it this year to see if it would be feasible, and it's just not feasible with our current budget. It's we've had to cut a lot in the last few years, and um, right now we're not able to add anything without increasing the bu- the money that comes in. So, Katie, if you want to say the name of the last person.
Yeah, it was Amanda Bradley, if they're still here. I don't know if they are.
They're still here. I just don't know if they can hear us.
We can circle back, Zach, if we have time at the end, I guess.
Yeah, we can circle back on that. We only have a few more minutes anyways. Um, yeah, we had about 2 more minutes. I at this point, we will give them a chance to speak if they end up being able to. Um, but we appreciate all the feedback that we got from the questions. Um, as Pre said, this has been a process that has gone on for the last several months of going back and forth. Um, we'll let Emily speak real quick.
Hi, I just wanted to come on here because I was just a little bit concerned why, when we're talking about our feedback for some of these, it seems like a lot of the international members aren't truly taking our accounts into consideration and are also all jumping in to speak, even though we had to submit ahead of time and only have our 2 minutes. We just have multiple concerns, like with the trustees. Um, I don't really think that the deadline for the number of trustees will be available, how that would impact whether they run for district endorsement, because I feel like if you are running, you should be able to run either way, no matter what the competition will be. And as many others pointed out, with the dues, it's concerning how the number of members um, will impact like the how much the dues will rise, because if we have lower numbers and the dues rise that much, it'll make it so much harder to fundraise with smaller schools or schools that don't have large sports teams or things like that, they do have a harder time fundraising and they can't take all of those points into consideration, like how Hannah was suggesting. So I just feel like there's a lot to talk about, and it feels like as members, we aren't getting as much of a chance as the international members to speak about these.
Yeah, thanks, Emily. Just to address a couple things. The first thing, honestly, like with the international trustees, helping answer some of those questions. The goal of the session today, is to help answer questions, that members have. And as members of the international board, they're able to provide better answers than even than me a lot of the time. They have a lot of great experience that they're trying to help explain where we're coming from with these amendments. Um, and just so I'm not speaking at you the entire time too, quite honestly, is a help is a part of that. Um, Another part of that, of the number of international trustees, we were proposing, that we, at the Governor Administrator Training Conference, discussed having a later date. But we got feedback from some of the governors and district administrators that, trustees should know how many folks they're running against, by the time that they're running for the position. So we took that feedback into account, and that's really part of the reason that we came up with that date. Um, so that in itself was also a compromise. Um, so that in itself, was something that we came up with, not from the international board, something that we took into account from the concerns of the district governors and what they believe was best for the candidates and best for the organization. Um, yeah. Other than that, go ahead, Hannah.
I just wanted to say, with it, Emily, just so you do know, my school is very small. My whole university has under 1,600 people counting graduate. So I do go to a very small university where those have been effective. So if you would like to reach out and I can talk to you about it and what we've done to help make it effective, please just let me know. Or if anybody else here goes to a smaller school or wants to have more resources, because I know it was something before I went to my university that we did really struggle with being at such a small university. It's very hard to do things compared to bigger schools. So please just reach out, and I can help you with those challenges.
Go ahead, Pri.
Okay, first of all, if anyone saw me like do my Zoom clap after what Zach said, that was not my intention. I understand that could be inappropriate. I was just trying to raise my hand, so I apologize for that. Second thing, Emily, to your point, I understand that a lot of the members on this call, this may be the first time they are formally hearing, like having verbal conversations about these amendments with the international board. But I assure you that we have been in contact with your governors and your district leadership for a long time now. To the point of everyone else, we have received the feedback of the governors and of your districts and implemented them into these amendments. Zach gave you an example with the trustee amendment. That was feedback that we received at the training. I will give you an example with the dues increase. The original increase that was proposed was an 888 increase over the next 3 years, simply because that is the number we needed to fill our deficit with 6,000 members. There were numbers run on that, and those numbers were released to all of the governors. The governors responded with a letter to the international board with, I believe, 11 signatures from 11 governors, that it's somewhere around there, proposing a 808 increase with a possible reduction in that third year increase, tying it to membership. We took that increase. We also considered the added insurance fee that Michelle Studi Campbell explained earlier, which is now, I believe, set at $5. At the time, we thought it could be anywhere between $3 and $5. And we added that as the year 2 increase, now giving us an 848 increase. So that was based on the feedback that your own districts and your own district leadership sent to us. We added that $4 increase as a compromise to compensate for that insurance fee. We also have a possible reduction in those increases in years 2 and years 3 with increases in membership. So, to say that we haven't considered the feedback of your districts is a little inaccurate, although I understand that for some of you, this may have been your first opportunity to provide feedback. However, for your leaders, it is not.
Awesome. Thanks, Pri. And I do just want to recognize that we are over time by 5 minutes. But I do just want to wrap this up by saying thank you all for coming tonight. Thank you all for posing a lot of questions. And if you haven't had all of your questions answered tonight, again, feel free to reach out. We are more than happy to set up some meetings, give you some more time to speak individually. And answer any other questions that you might have. Uh, Again, thank you for participating tonight, sending in a lot of great questions, and thank you for considering all of the things that we spoke about tonight and wanting to be educated as we're looking to uh, improve the future of our organization. So again, thanks all for coming. I'm sure I'll see some of you at the next town hall in a few weeks. But have a wonderful rest of your night, and we all appreciate all the feedback. We appreciate all the hard work you all are doing. And again, uh, you all should have my contact info. I'll drop it in the chat just in case. But feel free to email, text. I'm pretty responsive to either and happy to set up a call, even just answer some questions over text. So thank you and have a great rest of your night.